So, um, something happened. I have a lot of electronics and I have a lot of books and things in the basement. I have a lot of expensive electronics, radios, things like that. And it was getting, for some reason, in the middle of the summer, in August, even though there had been no rain, it was getting very, very damp in the basement. Extremely damp. And something weird started happening. These things started showing up on the bottom of our basement floor. They look like calcium deposits or something. They just showed up here out of the blue. I didn't see any puddles. I never saw any water. They just showed up, right? So it got more damp in August when it wasn't raining. And then this over here, this kind of, I guess this puddled up. Maybe the moisture from the air conditioning, or the heater's not on, but the air conditioning or something. Maybe some moisture puddled up and then something blocked that drain and we got water down here. Anyway, it's been bugging me that this basement has been extremely humid lately. So I bought this off of Amazon. It's a 70, what is it, pint? So this is manufactured by I guess the Home Company. I don't know much about the settings. This is not a thorough review. This is just an initial review. So I turned this on, and within hours, just a few hours, the reservoir down here was almost full. Okay, so here's what happened. I've been running this for 6 hours. I had to empty this morning. It was empty about 6 hours ago. So let's take a look. If you open up the reservoir down here, look at that. That is full of water. That's from 6 hours sitting in the basement. This is the fourth time since yesterday about this time that I started this at 2 p.m. The fourth time that I've had to empty this. Okay? Sorry for the lighting, darkness here, but I'm just going to go ahead and... This is all liquid that is in our air in the basement. And I'm amazed that it just keeps going. The fourth time it's got a little handle here, by the way. The fourth time that I've had to open and dump that out. Now, I'm pretty sure that little green thing down there, when it gets to the top, it will shut this off so it doesn't overflow. Okay? And you're probably wondering, why I don't have a hose. I don't have a hose attachment yet, but this one comes with a hose attachment. It's already leaking, and I don't have a hose though. So I'm going to hook that up and then bring it over to the drain somehow. But let me tell you something. After about the first time I unloaded it, the air down here is very dry. I swear it feels like dry desert air down here. So this thing, when you run it, it feels like almost like a heater. Not a heater, but you can slightly feel that this is heated air. So far this thing, after one day, I don't know, I probably emptied 3-4 gallons of water out of it in one day. I had no idea how much humidity was here. Now, just for your reference, I'm here in Missouri, eastern Missouri near St. Louis, and our air is extremely humid. But the basement is super dry. It feels like dry desert air down here after a day. Okay, let's look at the settings. I'm not sure what they are. I haven't looked at the manual yet, so I just turned it on so far. I think you can pick your moisture levels or how dry you want it, but it has a timer, it has a turbo. I have it on just the basic, not full, not turbo, nothing, and I turn it on and it's doing plenty of good job. The air right now is cool coming out of here. The air is super dry. This thing is doing an amazing job. It was about $240, but you know, it's an investment in your stuff because who knows what could mold down here. I actually had some, whenever that overflowed down there and got stuck, I actually had some damage to some books that were in that box right there. Yes, this basement is a mess. I haven't been down here to clean it in a while. We got to the point where we're so busy we're just kind of throwing things down here and running back upstairs. So anyway, this thing is amazing.